on the Colbert Show, and not so good reasons. If you are the researcher who published this as figure 1 of your manuscript, you're on the news for all the wrong reasons. Have you seen this image before? Yeah, it has done the rounds. It's as absurd as it is. Everything you're looking at is AI nonsense. Somehow got published, figure 1 in a manuscript published in the Frontiers family of journals. Yeah, exactly. Wow. The labels are wrong, the anatomy, I don't even need to get into it. It's all wrong. So use AI in the wrong way and your reputation could be on the line. Another example, wouldn't it be good to go on the New York Times, the Washington Post, and many others? If you're in the team of RFK Jr., you got caught putting AI references all over your health report. So this big report about human health got published by the White House. Turns out a bunch of the citations were fabricated by AI. Not a good look, although probably not even the worst thing they've done in the White House these days. So, just a couple of horror stories to wake you up and make you realize that yes, there are dangers in AI, but today I'm here to give you a balanced view between risks, because there are some serious risks, but also all the opportunities that AI offers, and there's a lot of them as we'll go through. A couple of words about who this guy is. So I run this business called Animate Your Science, based in Adelaide. We're a science communication agency. For 9 years, we've been helping researchers making animated videos about their research, offering training in visual science communication. And about 2 years ago, three, I went out, soon after ChatGPT made its public splash, it hit me what was coming, and I feared it. I thought, oh God, this thing is going to wipe out my business. And so that led me down into a rabbit hole where I really wanted to understand the enemy, so to speak. And so I looked at the legal side of AI, the usefulness, the real limitations. I really put the tools to the test in a variety of ways. And so initially I was quite anxious and concerned. But then the more I learned and the more I used the technology, the more my view changed. And now I have a much more positive outlook, and I'm quite excited and amazed at what it can do. And I realize this is probably the most incredible technology that will exist in our lifetime. And it's quite a momentous moment we're alive right now for the advent of AI. So I'm at the point where I've read books about it, listened to podcasts, went to courses, you name it, YouTube channel. It's a daily effort. And so I know about this stuff more than the average researcher. My wife is a researcher, and I realized she had no clue. She didn't even have the time to look into it, because it's a full-time job to do so. So it's like trying to drink out of a fire hose. So now I'm in a good position to help people like you catch up with all that has happened, so that you are not left behind, because the technology has moved so fast that there is a real risk now of falling behind and missing out lots of opportunities. So I'm curious, how does AI make you feel? As I shared today, AI used to make me feel quite concerned and fearful initially, but then my outlook changed. Shall we do a round? In one word, how does AI make you feel today?
Confident and independent.
Great.
Initially, it was amazing, but then it go into the concern.
Concerned, yeah. Yeah.
More productive.
More productive, good.
More productive.
Okay.
Another tool.
Another tool and another tool.
I think this is all based on consensus, and it's very dangerous. So it enlarges the mediocre output in general, but does not allow people to stand away from the majority, and science is not a democracy. Yeah. So I'm very skeptical, and I use it only in a very limited way.
Yeah, so it points everyone to an average, doesn't it? That's what the tool is good at, finding the average among a variety of opinions and patterns.
This should not be financed.
People online saying something, perhaps in the chat.
People online say worry and cautious.
Cautious.
Worry and cautious.
Cautious. Okay, great. Yeah.
Time saving also.
I'm saying. Yeah. So as expected, it's a mix of feelings, right? Positive, negative, and that's fine. Yeah. The way you feel about it, it's whatever that is, it's valid, and it might change through time. What I personally found very reassuring was to find out that Socrates hated writing when writing was new technology. And he had lots to say about this writing thing. First of all, Socrates was all for debate. And you cannot debate the book, right? It's a one way of communication. So he didn't like that. And then he also, what was else that he didn't like it? Can't debate it. Oh yeah, memory. The moment we can write things down, we'll stop exercising our memory. So he thought, oh, this thing is going to make us dumber. Isn't that very similar to the way many people feel today about AI? I think that there's a certain similarity to it, and I found it reassuring that I think with time we might get over this initial shock and accept and learn to live with this technology. Just like we did with calculators. Let's remember that when calculators came about, teachers literally protested with signs saying, stop the calculators, they're making our students dumb. Now it makes us smile, but we've been there as a society. So I think eventually it will be the same with AI. So are researchers using AI? Absolutely, you bet. Last year, 28% of manuscript had some signs of generative AI use. Some of them not even covering the tracks. There's lots of examples of this kind where in published manuscripts you find dialogue between the user and the chatbot, which is quite embarrassing, isn't it? Sorry, I'm just an AI. More, there's not just one case. Certainly, here's a possible introduction. Or, unfortunately, I'm just an AI language model. So,
And it's published.
all of these are published, yeah. So it's a bit like, for some, you think you're doing something clever, you're saving lots of time, but if you use it the wrong way, it backfires in your face, right? So you can use your career, perhaps even the reputation of your institution, for many reasons we'll go through. And I'm making that stop because it's just too much. So my promise for today is that we'll gain some clarity, because I think the main issue that is causing lots of researchers to hold back is the lack of clarity, where the line is between a legitimate ethical use case and so many in the fear of making a mistake, they just don't touch it. But that's a missed opportunity. So we'll try to bring some clarity, move your AI skills from wherever they are to more advanced, and easily we can regain hours a day, just if we focus on the right things. Sounds good? All right, let's get into it. I'll start with all the scary stuff and their implications. Every time you see this image, it means there is a risk, a pitfall of some sort. And let's start with copyright, which I think is the major one. Super quick refresher. In our legal system, when you create something, being a piece of writing, an image, a song, it's yours. You're entitled of the copyright. You can exclude others from using it. Then you can sell it, you can license it, you can do lots of things, but it's yours. So all rights reserved. Then there's Creative Commons licenses, where you hold the copyright, but you give away some rights, like happens in an open access paper or an article of the conversation. You allow others to repost it. And then there's things that are public domain, free for all. For example, for very old things, like old classical music, certain number of years after the death of the creator, it becomes public domain. So everyone can do whatever they want with it. With AI, in the West, in Australia, in the US, in Europe, the Copyright Office says that the simple act of writing a prompt does not entitle you of the copyright of what comes out. Only human work can be copyrighted. And writing a prompt is not enough. So that's the first thing to clarify. So that if it's not copyrightable, it means it's public domain. You still can use it, depending on the use case, but it's not yours. It's public domain. Everyone can use it. So this has implications for things like research papers, books, PhD thesis. All the things where you interface with the publisher, you know, the copyright goes from the author to the publisher, and then the publisher distributes that thing. That agreement kind of breaks down the moment we're dealing with content that is not copyrightable, right? So the line is that for things that are published through a publisher, you don't want to create it outright with AI from prompt. That's not okay, but what's okay is using AI for editing. So you need to start with human work, and then you can refine it with the help of the machine. But the starting point needs to be human work. So fixing grammar, clarity, etc., that's fine. For the PhD students, it's very important to keep a record of that initial draft of your PhD thesis, because at submission, depending on, I don't know in this university, but I know in some other universities in the country, you get asked, what prompts did you use? What was your initial input? Because your PhD needs to be your work, human work, not the ChatGPT work. So it's very important to keep some records, no matter how ugly that first draft was. There needs to be a record of it. So to make it super simple, Bob writes a review paper, uses ChatGPT to improve the clarity and the structure. Fine. Most of the intellectual input is his. He just used AI as a tool to do the final mile. He has no issues. His work is copyrightable. Linda, on the other hand, uses this very fancy AI tool that essentially does a whole literature review in a very automated, fantastic way, just by clicking a button and entering a prompt. And she submits that manuscript with minimal edits as her own work with her name on it. That's not good. But the tools exist to do exactly that. So that is not copyrightable, is not what the publishers want you to submit. In the chaos of the publishing industry, I found one report from STM, which is like a government body of the whole industry, that tries to bring some clarity over what's okay and what's not with AI. And it has this pretty handy table. So in the green, permitted without even disclosure necessary, is what we say. All the basic author support, all your editing, corrections, fixing grammar, sentence structure, all of that, it's fine. You don't even need to disclose you're using AI. But then anything that goes beyond that enters the gray area, and they want you to be clear about it. They want you to disclose it, and then the editors will decide whether it's acceptable or not. Then there's a couple of things that really don't want you to do. They don't want you to use your Gen AI tools to do any data manipulation, because we know that they are prone to mistakes, that they make stuff up all the time. So not a good idea to do your stats with them. And also they don't want you to put your AI tool as your co-author. Only humans can be co-authors, at least for now. We'll see in a few years. Other big issue, what happens to your data? You should know that all the major tools in the terms and conditions, let's say the personal tools, like your Copilot, if you're on a personal plan, not the institutional plan, but on the personal plans, like the ChatGPT you can make as an individual, by default, they let themselves use your data for training the next model. So what you enter today, whatever that might be, maybe your super novel grand concept, could become part of the brain of the next iteration of the model. Which is a bit like leaving your draft on a bench on campus. Chances are nothing is going to happen to it. but there's a small chance that somebody will pick it up and do something with it. Oh, in general, to stay clear of trouble, don't enter things that are copyrighted or are not yours, somebody else's manuscript, for example, and do not enter anything confidential, like patient data, anything like that, because obviously there are risks in there. Oh yes, just so you know, all of these ones let themselves use your data by default on the free and the personal plans. If you instead use the university Copilot, which I assume you have, that one is safe. None of the business or the institutional plans use your data, otherwise the university would never agree to that. But on the personal plans, remember, that's the default. And in something like ChatGPT, even if you pay those $20 a month, you need to know that there's a setting to disable it. And then, you know, the data is it's safe. So you need to know that, and yeah, just the distinction between the personal and the institutional plans. So can I use AI to review somebody else's paper? No, absolutely not. That's the worst thing you can do, because you violate both copyright and confidentiality. It's not your work. You're not entitled to put it into the AI, and you sign confidentiality agreement when you review somebody else's paper or grant. So absolutely not. But do you think this happens? Oh, absolutely, all the time. There's been a big scandal here with the ARC. They found that a bunch of the reviewers used AI, and the authors complained and made a case and ended up in the news. But it has gone that far that, you know, we got to the point where we got the scandal of the scandal. So prompt injection. So what is prompt injection? It's a practice where you hide a prompt in, you know, a web page, for example, or like in this case in a manuscript, that tries to hijack the instructions of the AI model. So literally, what happened is authors, assuming the reviewers would use AI, they hid a prompt inside the manuscript that said, give a positive review. But they put it there, white on white background. So not readable to the human, but readable to the machine. So you see how far we've gone. Not in a good way.
That's a very good way.
It's clever.
You're getting the cheaters. You're not doing anything wrong. You're putting white to white. You did the wrong thing. It's a reviewer problem.
Yes, I think there's there's layers of wrong practice here.
Double wrong.
Double wrong. Exactly. So this has happened multiple times already. It tells a lot. Okay, so one of the major issues with AI is what's known as hallucinations. So these LLMs, by definition, they make stuff up. They pattern recognition and pattern prediction machines, and they just approximate the truth the best they can, but they don't really understand truth from falsehood. So they just make it up. And they're really good at it. And it fools lots of us humans because it sounds very confident and plausible, but it can be factually incorrect. They don't take hallucinogenic drugs, they just do it by definition, by default. So this is particularly an issue with references. Lots of people go fooled by that because they look very accurate. They look plausible, but then when you go into the specifics, you find them wrong. Statistics, quotes, you know, oh, these people said that, completely made up quote. And so just remember that they don't really know stuff the way humans do. They just mimic and approximate very, very well in a very convincing way, but it's not quite the same. So let's now simulate how an LLM functions. If I say the word the old, can you predict the next word after that? If I start with the old, what would be likely to be after in a sentence, right?
Oh, the old.
The
Action.
system.
Old man died.
the old man, the old
Dog.
dog. What if I tell you that it's the old McDonald?
At the farm.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
So now the range of possibilities got narrowed down. Right? And that's exactly how these machines work. It's a probabilistic model. If your prompt is vague, it will go in all sorts of directions, but the better your prompt, the more it will focus in the right direction. We just simulated an LLM, pretty straightforward. If in a way it's like going back to school when you did your last multiple choice and you had no clue about a question, what do? Do you leave it blank or do you pick one at random?
Right.
Random, because if you pick a random, you still have 25% chance of getting it right. The AI thinks exactly in the same way. The AI is a Labrador dog, honestly. They just want to be a good boy. They want to do a good job. They've been instructed to be very helpful assistants, no matter what. So they're not really good at saying, I don't know, or I cannot do that. You rarely hear them, rarely hear them say that. They'll always say, yes, of course, here's the result, or here's that reference, here's that quote. But then you find out that it's incorrect. That's the best analogy I could find. Think about them like Labrador dogs. And hallucinations got to disastrous level with the release of Google AI summaries. No joking, these are real. Like when the first version of Google AI summaries, smoking while pregnant, doctors recommend 2 or 3 cigarettes a day. Or cheese not sticking to pizza, put some glue in your sauce. Or my personal favorite, how many rocks shall I eat? UC Berkeley geologists recommend at least one rock per day. How could this happen? Because in the first version of this AI, it was not smart enough to understand that perhaps a Reddit post written by a 12-year-old troll doesn't have the same weight of a peer-reviewed manuscript, right? For that AI, they were both sources and they didn't know what was right and what was wrong. And it's useful to remember that where do they get their facts? Number one is Reddit. So all your off-the-shelf AI tool, Copilot, ChatGPT, Gemini, Anthropic, that's where they get their facts. 40% Reddit. Web of Science is nowhere to be found in this list. There's a whole other class of tools for academic literature, but your off-the-shelf tools, just so you know, they go Wikipedia, Reddit, YouTube. So just useful to be aware of this. Made-up citations are kind of getting out of hands. Like last year, 2025, they found over 100,000 citations. A manuscript contained made-up citation. That's a lot. That's a lot of made-up citations. So, and why? Because they're very close to the real thing, right? You might have the right author, the right manuscript and title, but then you find out that the DOI is completely made up. So that's how they fool you. They might be 90% correct, but then it's that final 10% that trips you over. So you should be aware that for academic work, other tools are better. There are other tools that instead of looking at Reddit, they look only at peer-reviewed manuscripts. Google Scholar now has Google Scholar Labs, which is basically AI on top of the Google Scholar database. So instead of working with keywords, you just ask a question. Well, there are many others. Consensus is quite a nice one where it gives you very quickly a picture of where the literature, basically where the scientific consensus is on something. So you ask a question, let's say, I don't know, is collagen good for gut lining integrity? And we'll say, 60% of research manuscripts say yes, 30% say no, and 20 are in between. So it gives you a very nice visual summary of where the consensus stands, size, space, and many others. But these are not your Copilot. So So just be aware. Yep.
Also, Scopus provides Scopus AI.
Okay, great. Yeah, I mean, over time, it will become fairly standard, I believe, because it's definitely better than using keywords, not more natural. Yeah, so there's a whole world to be aware of out there. Lots of people, including myself, are concerned about the environmental impact of AI. So I looked into this and did my own research, and I also checked with a good friend of mine who is building a data center in Greenland, in Norway, running 100% on hydropower and lake water cooling, so the very green one. And so I double-checked this stuff with him, and yeah, it's true. AI data centers use a lot of power and water for cooling. Your average prompt will use 0.24 watt-hour of energy, like watching TV for 7 seconds. It's not a lot, it's not insignificant, and it certainly adds up. And at the moment, 1 to 2% of the world electricity is already being used by AI data centers. And that certainly is going to go up. I think it's a bit unfair to blame AI for environmental problems because AI just runs on electricity. We had decades to sort this problem out, but we didn't. So now we have a problem. Like if we decarbonized 10 years ago, now we would not have an issue, honestly. So it's not AI in itself. The problem is still us as a society that we're still running on fossil fuels for the most part. But the other interesting thing I found is that not all AI models are the same when it comes to environmental impact. And Google by far stands out as the better option. They are the most transparent about where the energy that runs their data centers comes from. And they do like their training runs during the day when they can soak up solar power. They're really quite good at that. All the other major ones are somewhere in the middle. They rely heavily on carbon credits, which is not quite the same. So let's say they're fair score. And then there's the black sheep, XAI, so Elon Musk company. He built this huge data center in a rush, could not get it hooked up on the grid anywhere. So he bought all the gas turbines he could get his hands on, hooked them up together, and runs the whole thing on gas. So that one is 100% fossil fuel. So I think, yeah, just stay away from that one. If you want the green choice, probably Google is your best bet these days. They're literally building nuclear power plants to run them and a series of plans to take data centers to space, so where there's no cooling issues and unfiltered solar. So when it comes down to us, what does this mean? Well, what I think is that you shouldn't use AI indiscriminately for everything. You need to write your birthday card to a friend. Well, maybe don't use AI for that. But AI to accelerate scientific progress, I think that's very valid and use case. So I would say it comes down to what the purpose of the use is. All right, take a break. Are there any questions?
So from online, there is a question on the reference of your Socrates at writing one.
Yeah.
So where the reference come from, and then there is a bunch of questions related to what you see provide in terms of the specialized AI tools, which probably not directed to you.
Sorry, but the reference for what? Sorry.
Socrates.
Socrates. I don't know. I'm not sure where I first bumped into that. I don't have a reference ready to go. Sorry. I hope it's not an AI hallucination. That would be embarrassing. No, I think that's a real thing. I had it from multiple places. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to share some info because I'm serving as an associate editor for Wiley for a journal, Australian economic papers. So we're using the Wiley system. So authors, when they submit their papers, their manuscripts, we will know AI score. So if papers or manuscripts with higher score, of course, that's reject.
They're screened out?
Yes, we do not accept.
Yeah. Problem with those is that they're not accurate. So there's a high risk of false positives. So the AI detectors, I do not recommend to use because they're also not exact. And they work in the same probabilistic fashion. So you might screen out papers that were actually not AI generated. But yeah.
Of course, we read, but a majority of them are rejected.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, for example,
Yeah, I think AI will become a normal part of the review process. But also, yeah, I don't think AI writing will also be necessarily excluded from the process. I think eventually we'll get used to it and accept it as such. It all depends on, is it an entirely AI-generated thing and with no substance, or is the substance there and the researchers just use the AI to improve their English, for example? Yeah, it's different levels. Yeah.
If you input the independence declaration of independence into the AI check, it will be also flagged as AI generated. The declaration, independence declaration of USA, for example, and then you put that into the AI detection, it will detect the AI generated that declaration of independence. But the thing is, there's a false positive on that. Some of the publication like Taylor and Francis, American Institute of Physics, they allow as long as you declare that you use AI in which part. So that detection, and also you declare that you review the paper very carefully. As long as you declare that, they will process. But if you do not declare that, maybe you can just reject that.
Yeah. I have my own question and question from online. The question from online is, can you talk about AI platform and their use in coding data? So that question, my own.
Talk about AI and coding.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll touch on it later. But yeah, in 1 hour, there's only this much we can do. But yeah, coding is a great use case.
My own question is related to how you can make AI separate the source of the information. And I'm saying this because I'm currently, for example, trying to design like a picture of a city, and sometimes it's very difficult to make AI to put the driver on the left lane, like in Australia, because they take a lot from other countries. And most of the time, even when we specify it, they put the driver on the right lane. So how to make that kind of thing? And similarly, we make things about Canberra. They are mostly taking, or they take a lot of from New South Wales because they are more common. So things like that, how to like.
Yeah, not easy. They all have their biases. I mean, there used to be just a year and a half ago that were very problematic gender and racial biases in image generation. Yeah, that got fixed for the most part. Used to be quite shocking. Really. You ask for an image of a group of researchers and all white. So now that doesn't happen anymore. To solve your issue, if you don't get, for example, the image you're asking for, I would recommend you give a reference. Like if you need, let's say, gum trees and it keeps spitting out pine trees, attach an image. Here's a gum tree forest. The landscape should look like that. And with references as attachments, it improves the quality. It brings you closer to what you need.
I would add on is what else did not mention there, there are a lot of open source models, and then platforms like OpenShift from Red Hat that you can fine tune your model with your images example, because put the image as prompt, it can give you the model some prompt, but it's still very heavy weighted in the data it has been trained. But then if you get like an open source model, then you fine tune with like 2-3 images of like drivers on the right direction, you're going to be changing the weights of the model to generate images similar to the ones you fine tune. And also you'll be more happy, friendly for the environment. You're going to be solving this local and using open source. None of those bad people there.
Slightly more technical though.
It's more technical, but that's why you're inside of university. You can call OpenSI and can help you to do that.
No, you have a power user among you.
I think about the idea, especially in the HDR space, we talk about, authorship and original knowledge being, the absolute sort of primary driver of your ethical decision making around whether to use AI or not, and also how to reference your use. But I think as we get more sophisticated advance of prompt engineering, does that line blur between, or that authorship line blur?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It will blur at some point. It also depends on how you use AI, right? If it's back and forth with the chatbot, or if you use a feature called Canvas, where you collaboratively edit the same edit manuscript. So it's less prompt based, and it's more like it's more iterative, exactly. And you might get the AI to just change the one sentence here and then this one here. Yeah, it's more granular. So that would be more difficult to keep a record of.
Yeah.
It's messy. There's no easy solution.
You mentioned about the the opt out on the the data that we put into the AI to train the AI, like
Opt out.
Opt out. Yes. Can you trust that?
Look, I don't think it's bulletproof. If you want bulletproof, you do what it just mentioned. Like you run it locally on your machine. I tried at it. You need quite a powerful machine. The model selection is smaller, right out of context very quickly. Yeah, I couldn't go very far with local LLMs unless you have a very beefy machine to use. Conscious of time, there's some interesting stuff I want to about. So now that we cover all the bad stuff, which ones are the good use cases? Can we use this for anything? Absolutely. There's actually more ethical use cases than unethical ones. So as a rule of thumb, remember your guiding principles are does confidentiality and copyright. Keep those two principles in mind, confidentiality and copyright, and that will help you navigate the landscape. So my personal top use case is email. I don't write any confidential emails. I don't work with defense or medical data, so I use AI all the time. Social media posts weekly, no problem. Graphics for presentations, like many of the graphics you've seen were AI, not all, some. Brainstorming, it's a fantastic brainstorming partner, especially when you learn, like I'll show you later, how to teach it more about yourself. So it understands your work and yourself better, then it becomes an even more useful brainstorming partner than just editing text of all sources. For many people, coding is the number one. If in your research you need to do any type of coding, it's a great help. So out in the green are all use cases I encounter that I think are ethical and without too much worry. Emails, slides, socials, writing your bio. Come on, who likes to write their own bio? It's so difficult to write your own bio. Grant applications, it's a very good one because there is no copyright implication when you write a grant. This just stays between you and the reviewer and the funding agency. It will never go out public, so it doesn't have all those copyright limitations. So you can actually do more when you prepare a grant than you can with the manuscript. Blogs, writing any kind of SOPs, policies, here's the policies, anything like that. Ethics application, like animal ethics, human ethics, all that kind of paperwork, great for AI use. Oh yeah, reference letters, something you need to do over and over again. The idea to write a good prompt once, to write a good reference letter, and then just customize the details in it. Scripts for videos, press releases for your research, fixing up your CV, taking minutes from meetings. All of that now can easily be automated and coding, and I'm sure there's more that I have not considered. Very long list. In the red, instead you got papers, thesis, books, anything you review, being a grant or somebody else's paper, and scientific illustrations. There's massive issues there of accuracy, when you need anatomical accuracy, structural accuracy, chemical formulas, anything like that. It's hopeless at it. So don't fall in the trap. Look, what really clicked for me was to get to a point where any task I approach, I now ask myself, shall I bring along my little robot? It's a muscle, right? It's a habit you need to form. And eventually you realize, yes, it actually makes sense to bring my little robot along for all sorts of things. And it takes time to develop that muscle and get used to it. I would say a good 10 hours of experimentation. But then once you get there, a whole world of opportunities really opens up and comes into focus. And the approach I recommend is the one of co-creation, not just total delegation, so that you can also maintain ownership. And you also, not only in the copyright sense, but in the way you feel towards your work. Because if you just have the machine write your whole manuscript, do you really feel it's your manuscript? I wouldn't. So maintain a good amount of involvement and co-create with it. So I'm curious now, although we're a bit short on time, maybe we'll skip this one because it's some stuff I really want to share with you. This one is brand new content. I've never presented before, and I'm pretty excited about it. So this one is not even in the course. Brand new. So I came across this framework, which really clicked for me. That because people might think, oh, I know AI. I've used it many times, but yeah, there's actually 3 levels of AI adoption. So following this pyramid diagram, we all start with using AI for answers. So a Google replacement. Oh, how do I make a plan for my trip? Can you make a travel itinerary or whatever? It's good at that, although the facts might be off depending on the subject. But most people start there. Then the level 2, which is what I'm, the part I'm refining personally myself, is AI as your partner. So is where you move from your general all-purpose copilot of ChatGPT to something that really knows you, your work, knows your story, everything. And so when you have brainstorming sessions, it's so much better because it can give you much more useful contextual feedback that is not just what everyone could get. Then the 3rd level is when you stop being there, prompting it, and it starts doing things on its own without you even being there. So let me show you some examples of what this relays me. So, for the basic stuff, writing emails, editing text, searching, travel planning. Give me 5 titles for my manuscript. Make this longer, shorter, more formal. Make it, this is the basic stuff where I don't need to teach you. We all start here. That's fairly intuitive. Limit, though, is that the machine doesn't know you. Something like ChatGPT, eventually, it saves your input, so it builds progressively a picture of you, but it's still fragmented. It doesn't really know about you. The real unlock is when you enter this level 2, which I'm personally working on at the moment with Notion, which is a platform that I think is great for storing all the context that AI needs to then perform its tasks. And here you really start to create a second brain, an extension of your physical brain. All the things you cannot possibly remember, like your book notes, notes for your experiment, whatever, it's all in one place. It's all accessible to your AI. So here, instead of answering a question in a generic way, you can ask, does this idea that I just came up with align with my goals and values? Now, if you ask this to your general ChatGPT, it will give you a crappy answer. But now that the AI knows, and by the way, I put the enhanced problems because it's much more powerful than your generic little AI. So now you can ask things like, oh, rewrite this in my voice. Because now the AI has a document that it knows my voice, knows how I write. So it's not writing in its generic ChatGPT, bland, vanilla style we all know. It's much more contextual. Mock peer review, great. Now it can review my grant application because it knows everything about the one grant I'm going for because I provided all the context it needed. So it's now an expert. If I'm going for the ASC Future Fellowship, it knows everything. It's not relying on training data, it's relying on knowledge I provided. So the way you set this up is actually easier than you think. Anybody here use the project feature in the Copilot or ChatGPT? It's actually a super powerful feature, very low-hanging fruit. So with the project feature, if you're in Google Gemini, it's called GEMS, but it's the same thing. You just combine a set of instructions. So let's say this is my bot for preparing the Marie Curie Fellowship. You're my specialized writing coach for the Marie Fellowship, and on and on. So you give a persona, and then you have 6 attachments. So the guidelines, the templates, the scoring sheets, anything you can get your hands on, you put it in there, and then you create this bot that now is 10 times more useful than your standard ChatGPT because it knows everything about the grant I'm going for, and it has the latest version of the guidelines because you provided those. So this one is a big unlock. And here's an example of something I did just the other day because I have this document where I provide lots of context about my business. And then I realized this AI doesn't know anything about me as an individual, right? So I was literally still in bed and I say, I want you to interview me. So you get to know about me, my work, my values more deeply. No, you know a bunch of stuff, but there's a bunch of stuff you don't know. Now ask me the questions so you have a more comprehensive picture. And then I had just that, 8 questions, I think it was. I asked me questions one at a time. So it's just a more human-like back and forth until you feel like you have a comprehensive picture, and then store that in your permanent memory so that I can use that with you, the One AI, or any other tool. And that is really a big unlock to make your tool much more useful. Limitation though, it's on demand. So this is still an AI that works only when you're there prompting it. Level 3 is when you really scale what AI can do for you, because now you're not relying on your inputs. Now you've got AI agents or an agent that performs tasks on a trigger or on a schedule. So what does that mean? You wake up in the morning, and on every Monday morning you get a report in your email that says, here's the latest research in your field. You did 0 research work. The bot did that for you overnight and served the report ready for you. Or here's your meeting brief. I set one up just the other day that every time it sees a new event on my calendar, it gets the person name and email, goes online, does a search about the person, goes in my CRM, goes in my inbox, sees all the previous interactions, and gives me one brief I read in 2 minutes before I enter the meeting. Pretty good time saving because I have lots of meetings. with people that I never met before. Or probably the easiest one of all these to set up, because now probably Teams already does that fairly well. You have the minutes and the action items ready. That's an example of more agentic AI, because you did not have it prompted to do that. It just did it on its own. Limitation, useful only for some things, those that are standardized and repeatable. If something is unique and different every time, it's not going to work. And if you reflect on this is actually reassuring, because there's lots of fear about job replacement, but this is our defense. Like corporations, universities being messy is our defense, because the robots are never going to be able to tease apart the complexity of a big corporation, of a big company, because the context is all scattered in your head, and in this PDF, and in that PowerPoint. So in a way, the machines are never going to replace us, because all that we set up was set up by humans for humans. All right, so these are the 3 levels. Where are you? Any level 3 in the room with AI agents? No? Any level 2s? Yeah? 2, 3?
So for level 2 and level 3, are they paid versions or public versions?
Are they?
Are they free or no? For level 2 and level 3?
You can have 3.
We have to use paid versions or?
I wouldn't trust level 2 too much on a free plan, especially if you disclose, depending what you disclose about yourself. On a free plan, your data is being mined. So I wouldn't tell a lot about myself as an individual. If I know my data is more secure, then I can disclose a little bit more. I'm more comfortable with that. So I wouldn't recommend free plans for very much at all. Depends on the tool. Some keep this feature only for the paid plan. Like I'm pretty sure with Copilot, you can set up the project only on the higher tier. So there's very confusing. I know. Copilot Chat, if that's what you have the most basic Copilot. Then there is 365 Copilot. That one is a better one. In that one, you do find the project feature where you can set up this kind of thing. But in the entry-level one, as far as I know. But they change every week, so I might be wrong.
Would you still be cautious, though, about uploading your research, for example, in sort of more of a draft mode when you're trying to create agentic AI? Is there still concern around IP?
It all depends on the tool. Like you can do agents in Copilot as well. Again, on the better one, not on the super basic. If it's your institutional Copilot, that one is safe. Like, otherwise, the university would never agree to that. The IT people that sign those contracts would never agree. The university staff data being mined, right? So that one is safe. The danger is with the personal plans. Like you make your own ChatGPT plan, even if you pay those $20. Let's remember, by default, they still use your data, unless you disable that and you trust them with it.
Would AI have access to what we save in our computer if we don't upload things in platform? If you've got a Word document and your paper on it, and you're using Perplexity, I sometimes think, what if Perplexity is reading my paper, even if I'm not uploading it there?
Perplexity just released this thing called Perplexity Computer. Is that what you're using?
The platform, the AI platform, is called Perplexity, but it's just an example. Others might do as well.
Yeah, it depends on the level of functionality. Your standard chatbot would not touch any of your data that you don't upload. But now we're moving to a whole new category of tools that instead can operate other apps. Perplexity just released one very recently called Perplexity Computer. and that one can operate other apps, so it can see beyond its sandbox. So for that, I don't know, it's very new. There are risks, I think. There's then probably our open source person here can talk about OpenClaw.
Now with OpenClaw is not safe anymore, right? Only to install your own version, not use the untrapped version.
Yeah.
But before that is like similar to Grammarly as well, to answer the question. If the app has access to the Word document and it's scanning, for example, now the Copilot of us here in the Word, you have the plugin, and then you don't need to go to the chat Copilot to be able to, and it's reading you are working, the time you are working.
So then if I submit my paper, then the problem that Ben mentioned, would that happen? They're saying, well...
No, because that Copilot here at the university, we believe is safe from the submit, but if someone reads, like he said very well, someone use any of those tools to try to say if it's AI generate or human generate, those tools are not transferable at all. The AI is very good and it cannot detect from like AI assisted as well. Like if you just use AI to rephrase your thing, you're gonna get the risk of being flagged in those tools, but those tools should not be trusted. That's the thing. Because even if you are very good writer and you write your text without any AI, can be like a false positive there. You're gonna say.
So my question is, if it's running in your computer, but you're not actually using it, but it's just running on the side, would you get high score as AI use or AI assisted?
That's not based on just running, yeah.
All right, so that's it with the content I have for you today. Just 1 hour. I cannot go much beyond that. I want to make you aware that we can help the university and you as individuals in many ways. We have workshops and online courses about all of these teams. Fixing research posters is one of my passions. I have a background in graphic design, so I'm very into that. Teaching people how to turn their own research into videos. AI, of course. Presentation skills. We have very good programs about all of these. Those of you preparing grants, we have 2 special workshops. One that teaches how to make figures, better figures for your grants, and one instead how to use AI for grants. So basically, that feature I mentioned earlier of setting up the project for your grant, it goes through that in much more depth and shows you at every step of the preparing a grant how AI can help at every single step from finding one to submission. We've got our services, of course, we can do it for you. And before you head off, you can grab this Jumpstart. If you're at the beginning of your AI journey, we've got a Jumpstart playbook for AI for you, which you can grab for free. All right, thank you very much for your attention. To answer any questions.
What sort of workshops do you have? Like what sort of content?
Exactly. These are the key areas. So research posters, video, how to make a video about your research, basically AI, so which is a continuation of what we talked about today. But today was more about the why. In the workshop, it was more about the how. How do you prompt it correctly, how to set up things, etc. Presentation skills, especially from the point of view of storytelling and making good slides. Having that mixed background in graphic design and science, I'm in a good position to talk about that. And then these more specific ones for grant writing, which are very popular these days. So let's remember, use it as a tool. It's your helper, not your supervisor. It's very smart. It's definitely smarter than, more useful than an intern, but it's not your supervisor. Always be critical because they regularly make stuff up. As we've seen, they hallucinate by, definition. So always be skeptical. Use it for the stuff you dislike. Use it for the busy work, the paperwork, your animal ethics application, all of that boring stuff, so you have more time for the stuff you actually enjoy, whatever that might be. All right, and we'd love to connect with you all on LinkedIn. You can scan that code over there to find me there, and here's my personal email. Happy to connect and keep in touch. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. So I think we can wrap up. There is no more question on the chat.